up? Hello, I hope you all are doing well. Today's review fulfills two different buckets of things on my list. The first being my second Shelf Sisters review for the year. And if you don't know about our Shelf Sisters series that Bex and I have been doing, you can certainly find out more about that if you would like. And it also fulfills my first book of two for Nonfiction November, which was, as you will very well note, about 2 weeks ago in terms of it ending. While I didn't finish this book actually in November, I did get a lot of fiction reading done, just as I suggested that I would in my TBR video, but sadly I was not able to finish any of the two books I set myself for Nonfiction November. But regardless, today's review is very exciting because this is a book that has been on my shelf for a while, hence why it made it into the Shelf Sisters series, and one that I have certainly wanted to talk about, and that is Quiet by Susan Cain. Now, this book still has all of my, not very many, but all of my little markings in it, all of these flags, and then I have a zillion notes that were littering my house for a while I was reading it, because there was so much in it that was so interesting to me that I wanted to take some time to talk to you about. So I've heard from a lot of people that this book is fabulous, that this is a great way to get interested in nonfiction, just a lot of really lovely things, a lot of resonation about the content of the book with other folks, and I certainly can say the same for myself. This book really looks into, as the title says, the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. Why do we still have these people who are quieter and more apt to be observant and listen more and be less gregarious, less outgoing, less extroverted, if the world seems to favor extroversion and all of those qualities that come with it? Why, in a world where that is the ideal? Susan Cain talks a lot about the introvert ideal in a variety of cultures actually, and where this could have come from, and really goes on a research journey to figure out why that came to be and if there are biological, psychological factors or research to back that up. Is this something that's ingrained in us? What's the story? Susan Cain, the author herself, describes herself as an introvert, and she tells this great story right at the beginning of a woman who is making a deal in a room with a bunch of lawyers for some sort of big corporate firm, and she is feeling really terrified and doesn't know what to say because everybody is sort of like shouting and banging on the table and just really being very demanding, and that's not her style at all. And she resolves there on the spot to say, you know what, this is the last thing that I'm going to do. I don't think this is the right profession for me. I can't compete with these people. I can't be the way that they are. If this is how you have to be to do this job, this is certainly not something that I can participate in. And then at some point she says to herself during the conversation, like, I can't be like them, but I can be myself, and so I guess I'm just gonna try and do this. I'll do this my way, and I will look for a new job tomorrow. And so she goes through the rest of the meeting and does a really great job. She stays very quiet and calm and collected and doesn't speak in like the very boisterous, outgoing, like fist-pounding manner of the other people in the room, and everyone really applauds her for it. It's a situation where her introversion actually behooved her, and her quiet calmness, very matter of fact, not rising to the bait of the shouting or the name calling or anything like that, really did her a favor, and she walked out of it not only with a closed deal with whatever they were making a deal on, but also a couple different job offers the next day. And Susan Cain later goes on to reveal that this is not the story of someone else, this is actually her story. And so she takes this initial experience and brings that to the forefront for everyone, so she can kind of explore the different pieces of research that might have led to something like this being really positive. And if something like that is positive and yields those type of results, like we want you on our team, we closed the deal, those kind of things, why is that demeanor not something that is openly, actively valued? Or at least seems that way in our society today. I do want to note that the copyright on this book is 2012, and I think if this book were edited and republished today that it would be fascinating to see the difference between the research then and what was going on in the world then, and the research now and what's going on in the world now, and the types of personalities that have come to the forefront, at least in American society, actually also in British society, just all over the Western world. You know what? Forget that. All over the entire world. Who's coming to the forefront? Who do we seem to value, especially in terms of leadership roles, and why are those people so lauded? I think that would be fascinating to read this book with updated research. I really enjoyed this book personally because it let me unpack different parts of myself, and without getting to therapy on you, I do want to address something that I said in my nonfiction November TBR video, which was, those are the two prompts that I'm associating with this book: movement and discovery. Movement because I feel like there is a movement in society now to really understand the aspects of mental health that have gone sort of swept under the rug for quite a long time, and to really pay attention to folks who are not gregarious and not incredibly extroverted, and really focus on what the powers and skills of those people are. And as a result of saying that last time, I recognized that that's not really clear entirely what I mean. And I received a very interesting comment about it that was basically asking whether or not I was conflating introversion and mental health, which, to be clear, are not the same thing. Introversion and extroversion are not at all diagnoses of mental health conditions. So to be clear, those are two different things. However, in this book, Susan Cain does give a variety of examples of moments where folks who are introverts are sort of subject to some treatment and some verbal abuse, one might say, especially if you look at the example of Eleanor Roosevelt, whose own mother nicknamed Eleanor Roosevelt Granny because she was not vivacious and outgoing. She was quiet and reserved, and her mother found her boring. And as a young woman, she was nicknamed Granny. And you sort of have to think about the impact of what those judgments that people make about those of us who are introverts really have on our mental health. I know for me, it's something that I have struggled with intensely. And Susan Cain actually brings up the research to back that up. Because if we look at Susan's example from that I just cited in the very beginning, when you're the only one in the room who is acting outside of that momentary norm, if you're the only quiet observer, if you're the only listener, if you are not the one who is shouting and trying to make your point. In chapter 3 of this book, she calls that the pain of independence, and how the altered perception that's happening in your brain in the amygdala can actually trigger fear responses. Understanding that you are standing alone can make you feel afraid. And in a simplified example of that, face-to-face collaboration in group settings, in work settings, often can do that to folks who really prefer to just be a little bit more reserved in the background, to get the work done by email, to do it in a way that doesn't involve having to be the only one of one mindset in a room, especially in a room that doesn't value the mindset that they're bringing to the table. You could actually extrapolate that particular logic out into a myriad of factors that the world is dealing with today. But the implications of that on the brain, on the amygdala, are to provoke a fear response. And time again, if this is happening to you repeatedly, there has to be some sort of mental health repercussions for that. Whether you're Eleanor Roosevelt being called Granny your entire life in a way that's not very complimentary, and being the only one in situations like that where your brain is triggering a fear response, there's no question in my mind that there are mental health implications there. You certainly can't say that there's direct causation, nor can you say that there's correlation, I don't think, but there is a connection. And I need to look no further than myself to figure out that that's true. One of the things I really like about this book is that there are a wide variety of examples brought to the fore. There's a mixture of research and sort of breaking down what scientists of all types have done in order to reach the conclusions that are drawn, but also, you know, very notable, high-powered, singular technology figures, people who have created incredible technology in their basements, to whom we sort of give a free pass as society to be introverted and to be sort of nerdy and strange. Like, it's okay for them to be that way because they are so incredibly talented and they are producing such wonderful things. It's okay for them to have that demeanor as long as they are doing X. So those type of examples are brought up, and then also real world examples, people that Susan has talked to, or moments from the author's own life. I think that those are evenly weighted throughout the book. But what I appreciated the most was that even though this is very obviously a book about introversion and the differences between extroversion and why one is favored over the other in society, there is a clear standpoint that says that we do need both. One is not preferable over the other, despite the fact that we have been led to believe such over the course of time. We have seen people with one of those demeanors over the other succeed in more prominent or successful ways. But overall, I felt that the point to this was that both introverts and extroverts are needed in order to make life happen, in order for us to continue to be able to exist comfortably. But I think the true question is, how can we really work to exist in more equal comfort than we have so far? I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars and only took off that last star because it does sometimes break a little from its general tone of relaying the information to a little bit of a humorous quip. And there were just so many humorous quips or moments where it was like, I'm really trying to be relatable with this one sentence, that it really sort of threw it off for me. I listened to the audiobook in addition to reading the text to this, and that just it didn't play well in the audiobook, and when I was reading it, I heard it the same way, so I think that might be a perception thing. So lastly, I'd like to leave you with this quote from the middle of the book where she's relating the nature of birds to the nature of humans, and I just think it's apt for this moment in time. During times of war or fear, the human equivalent of a bad nut season for female tip birds, it might seem that what we need most are aggressive, heroic types. But if our entire population consisted of warriors, there would be no one to notice, let alone battle, potentially deadly but far quieter threats like viral disease or climate change. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and we will see you very soon.